In this video, we're talking about 5 mistakes you can make setting up your drums. Coming up. Hi, I'm Kevin Zahner, and if this is your first time watching Rhythm Notes, please subscribe so we can help you level up your drumming and home recording today. Setting up drums is one of those things that takes years to figure out exactly how you want to do it and all the different issues that you face while doing so. Sometimes you don't always know how to do it up front because you don't know what you'll need down the road. Like anything we talk about on this channel, these are all guides. These are just ideas that work for many people. You might have something that works for you. If so, hit us up in the comments below about any questions about what we're talking about here today, or any suggestions you have, or things that you do or recommend to overcome some of these mistakes that drummers can make in their setups. The first issue we face is sliding all around the floor. To avoid this, drums come with spurs and rubber feet. On the floor toms, you'll often see rubber feet, and on the kick drum, you'll often see spurs with spikes on the end, as well as rubber components if you don't want to dig into the floor. I always bring my own area rug with a rubber back so it doesn't slide on any floors. That way, no matter where I go, I know that my drums will not move around and make that mistake, because I've been there where the drums are like sliding off the riser or moving all around or starting to head toward the bar. You don't want that. The number 2 mistake that you can make is sitting too high or sitting too low. Now, drummers like to sit different heights. We all have different body types, we all have different preferences, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a place where you're too low or you're too high. So make sure that when you adjust your throne, that one, you have a throne. Sometimes the chair from your dining set that's been packed in the garage is just the wrong height, and then you have to sit on a phone book, or you have to saw off the legs at the bottom. Like, that's just a little bit too unrealistic for a developing player, because you might find that you like to have one height at one point in your development, and then later on you realize you might want to raise your throne a little bit. Perhaps you adjust your posture as you grow as a performer and as you develop your muscles and technique, and perhaps even you get to a point where you want to like lower it down a little bit. I mean, Steve Gadd sits really low, and Jeff Porcaro always sat very low. There's nothing wrong with that. I like to sit somewhere in between, where my hip joints are just a little bit higher than my knees, and because of my body frame, that just works the best for how I move around the drums and allows my feet to move more fluently and freely and relaxed as I play. So what relates to that as you set your throne height is the height of your drums, the height of your snare drum. If the drum is too high, you're going to hit the rim and not the head. If the drum is too low and you go to hit a rim shot, you're going to hit your leg and not the rim. So you want to make sure that that height is comfortable for you and the kind of playing that you want to achieve. So one thing that helps in terms of the drum heights and taking your drums down and setting them up again is memory locks. Memory locks come in different shapes and sizes depending on the style of hardware, the models or make of the drums that you have. I use Pearl, and so this is a Pearl design, but it's the same concept whether you're using Tama or Yamaha or other brands, DW, in that you keep the memory lock where you want to keep the hardware every time. So when you take out the hardware, it'll be ready to receive the instrument at that same place where you left it when you set up at the recording session or the next gig, or just back at home for your own rehearsal or practice. Mistake you can make number 3 is finding enough space. How many times have you showed up to a gig and there's no space? The sound engineer and the guitar players and whoever's there will look at you like, hey, we left some room for you, but you couldn't even like fit your kick drum in that space. It's not even enough space like to put anything there. You couldn't even sit your throne down in a snare drum, never mind the kick drum and the toms and the cymbals. And of course, we're bringing usually like pretty conservative setups to gigs. I get it, but what I've realized is that it's always better to get there early so you can carve out your space and have that conversation with the other musicians as they arrive, because there's nothing worse than getting to a gig and there's no time to set up, and there's no room for you to set up, and then you finally do get set up, but you can't get out because you can't get out this side, you can't get out that side, then you're moving drums around every time you get in and out. It just doesn't feel professional, and it's not really why we play music. We want to play music because we're there to entertain, we're there to grow as musicians and as people, we're there to have a good time and a positive experience. Not one that's cramped and your elbows hitting the wall and you really wish that the guitar amp was a little bit farther away, but you just didn't have the time to have that conversation. So don't make that mistake. Make enough room for you to get in and out, to fit your components, and if you have to make adjustments like leave out a crash cymbal, leave out an extra tom, it's not the end of the world. You can adjust and accommodate those smaller spaces, but it's just important to think about that before you get there, and certainly think about that before you start setting up and playing. Mistake you can make number 4 is placing drums too far away. Drums and cymbals, like I said earlier, should be reachable. You should be able to move very comfortably to that instrument. You shouldn't have to move too far, like lean forward or lean to the right or move your body in any weird ways to access that drum or that cymbal. So it's important to make sure that the drums and cymbals are comfortable to reach and that they're not too far away. Likewise, you don't want them too close. If they're all right up in your space, how are you going to be able to play, right? So this kind of goes back to placement of the drums and cymbals, but then also within that space, using this space so that it facilitates your movement. And the 5th mistake that you can make is too many cymbals. I see this so much where there's 7 crash cymbals. Who needs 7 crash cymbals? Who needs like 2 ride cymbals? Who needs 3 hi-hats? Okay, so I get it, like the cymbal stack's really cool, different size hi-hats are really cool. I love that stuff. Many different crash cymbals and splash cymbals, that stuff's really cool. I get it, totally. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, is this really what my gig calls for? Is this really what is going to help me express the ideas that I have musically? And maybe it is. Maybe this isn't a mistake at all. But the mistake that young players often make is that they think that that's going to be what makes them sound good, all those different crash cymbals. The fact is, 1 crash cymbal, 1 ride, 1 hi-hat, if you can't get it done with a few drums and a few cymbals, you're not going to get it done with more. It's just going to be more of the same poor playing that you're doing on fewer cymbals. So focus on your playing. It's exciting to buy new gear. I get the gear acquisition syndrome, the gas, once in a while, and guilty as charged. It feels really awesome. It's awesome to get a brand new snare drum, especially if it's a sound that you've been looking for a while. It's great to get a new crash cymbal or a splash and have that new accent and that wash that you didn't have before, or a really dry stack. I get it. I do. Just make sure that you're not making the mistake of thinking that that's going to be the difference for you. Like that's going to be the thing that makes you better, that helps you level up your drumming today. And another mistake that you can make is not handling the felts properly. On the hi-hat clutch, there's 2 felts in there, and usually the cymbal is pretty tight and they're not moving around, but on a ride or crash cymbal, it could be moving around. You want to make sure that you have the felt on the bottom, but then also the plastic piece that covers the metal part of the hardware, because you don't want the cymbal hitting metal on the hardware. You want to protect the cymbal, otherwise you can get keyholing. It'll notch out a little keyhole in your cymbal, and that's no good. That leads to cracking, it ruins the cymbal, and it's really something that's easily preventable. It's really inexpensive to buy some of these plastic pieces that go over your hardware that'll fit different designs. Make sure that you check out what fits your hardware, whether you have Tama or Yamaha or Pearl hardware. Different hardware has different pieces that go over it. I like the Yamaha stands because the plastic protector actually screws on, and it's actually part of the washer that holds the cymbal and the cymbal felt on the bottom. So these are little things that you learn along the way that'll make the difference. If you have nothing at all, and you want to get started right away, duct tape will last for about 4 to 6 hours sometimes, depending on how much you're playing that cymbal, but duct tape's better than nothing. Duct tape, Gorilla Tape, whatever strong tape you have, put it on there, and just keep an eye on it, inspect it once in a while, but really, get to the store, get on Amazon.com, and buy some of those protectors for your cymbals. What's going to help you level up your drumming today is if you watch more of our videos in our library, or go over to rhythmnotes.net for more information about drum set setups, drum lessons, and anything about recording drums and producing music. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button. If you have any comments or suggestions, hit us up in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so you don't miss any future videos. See you in the next one. Bye.